Time for a quick pro tip. We're going to talk about how to add a trend line and forecast to a line chart in Power BI. So go ahead and open up your AdventureWorks report, head to the Exec Dashboard tab, and we're going to modify this weekly revenue chart that we just created. And check this out. If we click those formatting options here, you'll see those options, trend line and forecast, right here in our list. If you want to go ahead and check that box, you can see what those look like. Boom, there's our linear trend line, and here's our default forecast. So that's looking okay, but you might want to kind of customize the settings a little bit. So as always, let's jump into our formatting pane, scroll all the way down, and we can see what additional formatting options we have. So first things first, our trend line is a little bit too dark and bold. I don't really want it to compete or conflict with the weekly revenue trending, which is really what matters most in this chart. So let's just bump the transparency way up to something like 75%. That's going to make it a bit more subtle, but still nice and readable. So I think that looks good. Now let's jump down to our forecast formatting options. You can customize the units here, either based on individual time or date parts, or using points. And points is basically a flexible option that tells Power BI, hey, no matter what level of granularity you're viewing, just forecast out X units, right? So if you're looking at daily, in this case, we have a forecast length of 10, that would create a forecast out 10 days. If you're looking at weekly, it would be 10 weeks, monthly, 10 months, and so on and so forth. We also have this nice option to ignore the last certain number of periods, which in this case actually is quite helpful. You'll notice this big drop in the last week, and that's actually because the week of 6/27/2022 doesn't contain a full 7 days. It's a partial week. We're going to talk about how to filter that out from the visual in just a bit, but another way that we could account for that is to ignore the last one period as part of our forecast. If we apply that change, you'll see the forecast kind of bump up to where we'd expect that week to fall if it were an entire week of data. And we also have a confidence interval option here. And this basically says, how confident can you be that the actual values over these next 10 periods will fall somewhere inside of this confidence band? And so a very high level of confidence, like 95%, will produce a pretty wide range, right? Because we're very confident that the actual values will fall somewhere in this range based on historical performance. If you drop this down to something like 85%, note that the band is going to narrow down when we click Apply. Now we're less confident because we're trying to predict a more narrow range of future values. So last thing here is we can update some formatting with the forecast line or the confidence band. I think this is looking pretty good. You might just want to update some of the transparency a little bit if you're not seeing the values that I am. We can maybe bump this up to 90%. Again, kind of same idea as our trend line. We want it to be clearly visible, but not really competing with the core values in our line chart. So there you have it. That's your quick crash course in adding trend lines and forecasts to line charts in Power BI.